Let us look at what is a composite role in more detail. Like I iterated before, that composite roles are nothing but a shell, which is a grouping of many single roles. They do not carry either a profile of their own or authorization data of their own. They simply leverage authorizations that they collect from multiple single roles. They are empty shells, containers, which groups multiple single roles and provide ease of user assignment administration. So how is this easy? So instead of assigning 20 or 25 roles to a user, you just go ahead and assign a single composite role to the user, which contain all those 25 roles. It's easier to understand, easier to interpret, easier to communicate, and easier to manage. The users assigned to a composite role get authorization of all the single roles assigned. There is no easy way to identify a composite and a single role. The best way is to have a good naming convention approach. For example, you can name all composite roles starting with ZC and all the single roles starting with ZS. Z in this case stands for roles that you built in customer space. So any roles starting with S, AP or S would stand that the roles were built by SAP Germany and it is in SAP namespace. But when you build roles with starting with Z or Y, it means that they've been built custom and they are applicable for customer namespace. So Z in both the cases, C would stand for composite, S would stand for single. All roles are created in PFCG. Here is an example of a composite role. ZC Security Administrator, a role for single user administration. It contains SUIM, which is a combination of lot of reports, which is very useful for security administrator. It also contains common role assigned to all users, things like printing, spooling, or SU, SU3, SMX. Those transactions are pulled in into a common role. Then role for user groups maintenance, so SUGR. Then there is role for Versa /n /Versa /vfat /vret. Those are the transaction of Versa. Then there is one more role for table display. So as you can see, there is one composite role at the top and there are 6 smaller roles contained in that composite role. The role names shown here are not technical role names but the description of those roles. The technical role name would of course start with ZS and then it would follow a simple naming convention. Menu of composite roles are auto-generated using the menu of single roles. We can also compress the composite role menu. What it does is it removes all the duplicate transaction and that's why it's called menu compression utility. I personally prefer the combination of composite role stands for a job role. For example, accountant would be a composite role and single role would be task role like create bank, create vendor, document posting, GL display, invoice processing. So there would be 5 single roles as part of accountant duty. Each of the single role would contain specific tasks, multiple transaction for specific tasks, and then you'll have a composite role which will which can be directly assigned to the job function. So let us go ahead and the system itself and create a composite role on these principles. We always start with PFCG, which is the role management utility. I go in and I say I want to create a role called, let us first create a single role. So ZD security common. Common role for all. I shouldn't say common, I'll just say common. And then I go to menu, save this role, add a couple of transactions like SU3, SMX, SM37, SP02. And then the next step is always you generate the necessary authorization. Right now I'm just clicking on this, but you need to maintain each of the values individually carefully. But this is just to show you how a composite role is created. We need to save, we need to generate to go back. The authorization tab is green, which is very important. I've created one single role as ZD common. Let me go ahead and create another single role. D stands for display, F stands for functional update role. So I'm going to go ahead and create a role called CF user admin. Click on role, basic user administration role. Click on menu, say yes. Click on transaction, let me add SU01 and PFCG. Say assign transactions, authorization, change, save, plan version, say save, give open, maintain the authorization field values, say save, generate. We always follow the sequence of save first and generate, and then just we go back. So we have now two roles. One is CF user admin, both of them being single roles, and we also have ZD security common. Now we have single roles as follows: ZF user admin and ZD security common. And you can have more than two, you can have multiple. Using these two roles, we are going to create a composite role which would be called ZC security administrator. Copy this and just go. Now instead of saying I want to create a role, this time you will say I want to create a composite role. The system would understand composite role for security administrator. Now the system has given an additional tab in form of roles. Click on roles and it's asking what roles do you want to include in this composite role. So we go back and we copy these two single roles and say save. Security common doesn't exist. Or yeah, we've modified the name to just common. So it's giving the error. We make it just common and now it has accepted. Now please note there is no authorization tab in this role because a composite role doesn't carry authorizations. On the menu, it hasn't got any menu yet. So what we need to do is we go to menu and we say read menu from single roles. Once you do that, it will get all the transactions from the single roles. You just say click on save and the composite role is created. That brings us to the end of this session. Thank you.